Ross Dellenger, SI.com. He's joined us on many occasions, most of the time always about college football or college athletics. He joins us. I had spoken or sent a text to Ross about the Mark Emmert story. But, Ross, I want to start with Dave Aranda and the decision at quarterback with Blake Shapen over Gary Bohannon. You know him well. You've interviewed him very well, and so have we. He was doing, obviously, another player a favor, at the same time making the decision that's best for his program.
Yeah, for sure, and it's kind of a rarity that we see these days for a coach to kind of take the risk, right? Dave is taking a risk. You always want, your backup quarterback to be pretty solid and strong, and you don't want him to leave. And a lot of times we see coaches, not make a decision on a quarterback competition until the very end of fall camp, where it's too late for a backup to potentially leave. So the fact that Dave did it did it a week before the May 1 deadline, provides Bohannon a chance to get into the portal in before that May 1 deadline and be able to play immediately. So it's a great decision. I wish we'd have more of them, but I know sometimes the competition is close enough where you don't have that. But for Dave to do what he did is impressive. And like I said, I wish it would happen a little more.
Ross, with the news of Mark Emmert leaving the NCAA, which was met with nothing but applause. I mean, I don't think anybody was sad to see him go out the door, but what does the new president have to be able to do, given that we really don't know what the structure of that job is going to be with the new governance rules and everything else going forward?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting, immediately after Mark Emmert's announcement, everybody wants to have a list of potential candidates and who could replace him and all this stuff, when really we should be not asking who, but what. What is the job? What does the job entail? What is the NCAA at that point next year? Transformation Committee is working on a lot of moves that that could potentially change how we legislate college sports, and could change the power and authority of the NCAA. But what we're going to see is the NCAA, be more and more relevant. Their authority for over years now, right, has been kind of chipped away by litigation and legal challenges in the conferences. The conferences have more power and authority. So you've seen Washington State President Kirk Schulz come out and remove his name for candidacy for the NCAA president. Greg Sankey did the same thing, which of course that was laughable. He's in much more powerful position in the SEC. That's just the way it is now. Conference leaders and even school leaders are in a lot better position than the NCAA president. Why would you go to a job if you have a nice, cushy job, especially one with a lot of authority and power? Why would you go to one that's losing power and authority and go to a entity that might not be around in just a few years?
Ross, to that point, how desirable is this job for someone out there? I mean, Greg Sankey, like you said, I mean, that'd be a massive step down for him. But how much of a step up does it look like for maybe some others out there that could be interested?
Well, I think that there obviously are some that might be interested in the job. And I know Baylor's president has she was on one of those many click me lists that you see of names just kind of thrown against the wall. And but I don't really know how attractive the job is for a variety of reasons, because like I said earlier, you don't know if the NCAA is even going to be around. You don't know how long it's going to be around, how much longer it's going to be around. You don't know what it's going to do, what its authority is, what it's going to be presiding over. And so, but I'm sure there are quite a bit of people that would be interested. First of all, it pays really well. Like Mark Emmert made around, I think, $2.5 to $3 million a year. So it certainly pays well. It pays more than like a college president job at most places, I would think. So it does pay well, but I'm not sure there are a whole lot of other attractive things about the job. Right now the NCAA oversees the enforcement of rules that were made by its members and puts on championship events, basically, and kind of oversees the legislation. And you just see things get pulled from under it. They're not going to oversee legislation anymore. It's going to go to the conferences. The enforcement might be something pulled from them. So the NCAA, when we get down to it, are they just going to be a body that puts on championships? And if that's the case, do we need them? Certainly those are questions being asked.
Ross, the story as well, we knew the Big 12 was going to expand with Brigham Young, and, of course, the timeline with Texas and Oklahoma remains up in the air, whether it's all the way through 24-25. But now the story, and this is something the American Football Conference has been working on, kind of quiet about it, but Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF will be joining, it appears, the Big 12 starting in 2023, excuse me. I don't think this is a surprise. Is this also for the American Football Conference a chance for them to move on and do what they need to do?
Yeah, it is. And this has been, as you said, not very surprising. I think everybody, and I believe even some athletic directors like at Houston and UCF, have been on the record the last few weeks saying, our expectation is trying to get in for 2023. And so I think we're just coming down to the final days of negotiation where a deal, it feels like, is going to be done within a week or so over the next week. And that'll open the door for Cincinnati and UCF and Houston to join the Big 12 starting in 2023. And it's kind of a domino effect for the American, which is grabbing, 6 members, I think, from Conference USA to come over in 2023 there as well. So you gotta have the domino of the AAC teams going to the Big 12 to fall before you have the other one. I think we're going to see that happen in the next 5 to 10 days. I think that'll happen. There's a May 1 deadline, I believe, for some things that need to happen. I don't exactly know the specifics of the May 1 deadline, but I believe the AAC, the Conference USA teams need to notify Conference USA, I believe, by May 1 if they're going to be on the move in 2023 to the American. So that's kind of what's happening. So everybody's kind of working, I believe, off that deadline. And then, of course, this opens up a bigger question. Is OU and Texas going to really, especially Texas, are they really going to remain in the Big 12 for 2 years with these new members, specifically Houston? You can just imagine Texas having to go and play Houston in a conference road game and then, host Houston the next year. It's just hard to wrap your mind around that, Texas being okay with that. So I'm kind of in the mindset that maybe they're in the conference with these new teams for a year, 2023, but maybe they get out a year early, which is still going to be costly, but you never know. There might be some wiggle room at some point there where they can do that and join the SEC in 24.
Ross, can you imagine the scheduling nightmare that it will be over the couple of years to make all of it work of teams coming in and out based on the way that college football schedules in the past of 20 years in the future?
Yeah, yes, it is. It's going to be really interesting, and it'll be a hot topic this coming week. I'm heading out to Phoenix for the Big 12 meetings are there along with some other conferences, and so there'll be a lot of administrators. I know this is like the top, the main issue that they'll be discussing is future scheduling and the 14-team schedule and how it will look. The division will have divisions. Will be, how many games will you play? How do you determine the championship participants? So I know it's going to be a big topic of discussion.
It's amazing, Ross, what we've seen. NIL, transfer portal, and now all the conference realignment, which we've seen before, but it just seems like every damn day. It's something. It's great for us, and good for you as well. But it just seems like there's something every single, not maybe day, but every week when it comes to college athletics. And then the Mark Emmert thing now just kind of lands on top of it.
That's right. I was busy yesterday chasing news on the transformation committee that revealed some of their concepts that they've been working on, which are pretty significant. And while trying to chase all that down, the Mark Emmert news dropped. There's no real off season anymore in college sports and in college football. You don't have it like you used to, where in the past, covering college football was not a year-round thing. I would have covered basketball and then moved on maybe even to something else. It's just not the case anymore. You got to stay on it a year-round, and it's kind of like football recruiting these days, also year-round.
Thank you, Ross. Appreciate it. Ross Dellenger, SI.com, with us on Mark Emmert on the Big 12, and again, that's a story we haven't even been able to get to, which is a huge deal. And one of the reasons we exploded as a show for you on YouTube is what we have. With Brigham Young, we knew would be joining the conference no matter what Texas and Oklahoma do in 2023. And now we know that as well with what UCF, Cincinnati, and Houston are going to be able to do. What appears as if get out of their deal at the American Conference and start that same year, which means the Big 12 will most likely have 14 teams starting not this season but next.
Yeah, I'm curious if this does hurry up the exit of Oklahoma and Texas to some extent. Obviously, doubtful that they would be out by 23, but could they get out there after 23? I guess that's, potentially there. I know that based on their fan base's reactions, they're too good for the icky new schools coming in, these lowlifes coming in. So, if it was up to the fan bases, they'd have paid that price and already be on to the elite of the SEC. But, they might have to, wrestle with the lowlifes there for a year or two and go to the SEC, I guess, and then, the year after or something like that. But it does appear as though we'll get 1 year of crossover, and I think that'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that doesn't force the exit quicker.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure it does, but I don't think it's going to and I have no information to base this on, but I just assume that we're going to probably get a year of that. Yes. I don't think they're going to leave after this season is what I'm saying.
Right.
So if that means that they would have at least 1 year to play the BYUs and the Cincinnatis, et cetera. And so, I would think they'd probably exit quickly after that, but they're going to probably be a year where they have to, you have to tangle with the newcomers.
All it's going to take is one loss in Orlando, Cincinnati, or Houston for Texas to be like, all right, whatever it takes. So look, you can have all the money you want. We can't go to Orlando and lose again.
No question. By the way, Big 12 meetings are next week. They will be discussing that 14-team conference and how they'll figure out the schedule, divisions, no divisions. 8 teams, 9 games. How many games? They're playing 9 now with 10 because everybody plays each other. So that will be interesting, at least the possibility of 1 year, maybe 2, with all the 4 new teams along with Texas and Oklahoma as well. At least not next year, not this coming season, but 2023.
Yeah, and I feel like we did talk about that, right? Like we were talking about that months ago, the possibility of that.
All day, it seemed like every day.
It's not really new news. I guess it's just new that it's actually happening is what's actually happening. Because, we've definitely discussed them coming in at that time period. But now that it's basically official, I am curious of how that tips over certain dominoes. OU, Texas being a couple of the big ones, and then, the scheduling piece and how all that's going to be worked out. And the fact that, if they do stick around for at least a year, if not 2, then you're going to have to do it all over again once they leave, basically, unless you just split them up, and that way you just subtract 1 from both divisions and you're still set. But, we'll have to see how they